The sound is just freaking out on me. Okay, so I can tell you what I think we should do about the holy sites. I think, if you were to make two states, you should just make the border connected to all the main holy sites, and then you could, have it sort of as a neutral zone with its own, special joint security, detail, where you can allow everyone to go to the holy sites and access both sides. It's realistic, but if you have freedom of movement, go from either state to either state. You could have friendly immigration policy in between the states and everything. But at the beginning, it doesn't seem very likely. So I think.
Whoa, Jeremy, you there?
Rafi disappeared.
Yeah, he's
got.
got.
Here, Rafi disappeared. It looks like.
Yeah, he's got to be having connection problems. It's probably not even worth him trying to get back in because it's just going to keep. The fact that just happened, his connection just got lost.
Yeah, I think it's pretty obvious that he's having a little bit of issue there with his connection.
That's fine. So what I was going to bring up to you, Jeremy, he just brought up, we can just go back and forth, you and I. I mean, ultimately, there's just so many different items here. The freedom of movement Rafi just brought up. I mean, that's a clear and relevant item to be talked about. The concept of the different holy sites. Who has control over what. Ultimately, what is your party's outlook on just different items such as freedom of movement for Palestinians? Because ultimately, there are Palestinians that would consider your party far off to the right, but maybe do they not have? Do you think your party is represented in terms of let's say Palestinians having a darker picture of what your party actually stands for?
Yeah, we've mentioned this back in the conversation that I had with Kamal, that our party is misrepresented. We feel that a lot of our positions are actually a lot more moderate than the Likud and Israel Beitenu and other parties on the right when it comes to certain issues. We're very big supporters of the Palestinians that are working within the West Bank, whether it's resettlements or what can be done for their own economy. We're not looking to have more roadblocks or checkpoints. We're actually looking to see what we can do about lowering the number of them in the territories. And here, once again, we're talking about something of having freedom of movement, which I believe is an important factor that any person in any religion can really get behind. We feel that it's important that Jews are able to go and pray at any of the places that they feel is important to them according to Jewish faith, just as Christians should be able to do that. And we believe that Muslims should have the same rights as well. And again, I feel that this is a very practical, I'd also call it what I feel is more of a pragmatic view. And we're very disappointed to hear that there are a lot of people on the Palestinian side that don't feel that we have the right to visit a lot of these places. Again, we're not talking about control, we're talking about visiting these places. If we see that we're not even given that basic right, it becomes very difficult, and that's why I mentioned that this is one of the three most, in my opinion, tough issues that the Israelis and Palestinians need to be able to work through, because it's going to be very hard to ask for a lot of religious Jews that they're not going to be able to show up to worship and pray at their holy sites.
Right. So what then do you think? What then do you think is the reasoning why, Palestinians, are not seeing, the items that you're bringing up seem pretty reasonable, and it seems like you're willing to, try and make this right. What are the reasonings behind, it just not all coming together?
usual response from the Palestinian leadership is that they don't feel that Jews should be able to have freedom of movement within a Palestinian state. And because of that, if certain Jewish worship sites end up on the Palestinian side, Jews are just not going to be allowed to visit them. And that's why I said that it's time to try to think outside of the box and see what we can do in terms of raising this issue among the people, and let that as a grassroots thing sort of get up, either towards the current leadership or whatever future leadership you're going to have in the future. Because it's a very big thing to be able to ask of the Jewish people after thousands of years that they return to their land, that they're not going to be able to pray to these special sites that has been off limits for thousands of years.
Right. Okay. So, and I'm just curious. I mean, Rafi, are you there? Okay, no problem. It's if Rafi's not there, it's not a big deal. All right. So not a problem. Then, what I was going to say is, kind of taking a you
just came back in. It was fading out though.
Okay, what I was going to ask Jeremy is how does the idea behind, I mean, what's your interpretation of how, you basically, your party and other Israeli parties, you talk about how there are holy sites that, Israelis and Jews want to be able to, be able to worship at, primarily in Israel, but then others in the West Bank. And then the idea of, Palestinians there are plenty of Palestinians that, can't even travel into Jerusalem and, can't pray at certain holy sites of their own. Ultimately, do you see this as just simply a struggle between, two really, strong-minded peoples that, they all share, they really share a lot of similar interests, and yet, or do you see these two peoples, having completely different intentions? I mean, from a lot of the discussions we have on Vonvo, you get the idea that there are, there seems to be a lot of different, parallels and common ground, but just like no sort of real solution here.
Well, is that going to be towards me or towards Rafi?
I was going to direct it towards you just because Rafi keeps going in and out, and I'm not really sure when he's on or not.
I hear that. So, listen, I think, like I said, the problem is if you're going to go ahead and say there's a certain type of solution and this solution is going to work, and you're not looking to have any sort of compromise. We've been looking at the same solution since 1992. We've been looking at the same framework. It's not working. A very big step that was made by Naftali Bennett, which is part of his view, is that he doesn't want to throw one Jew out of his house, and he doesn't want to throw one Arab out of his house. He thinks that enough people have been thrown out of their homes, and we shouldn't have to deal with that anymore. And that's not the type of thinking that you're seeing from the current Israeli leadership, and that's not the type of thinking that you're hearing from the Palestinian leadership. So if we start opening up to new opinions, if we start listening to new solutions, if we start thinking outside of the box, I think you're going to be able to find a lot more common ground, like you said, because we're just repeating the same thing over and over again, and it's not working.
Right. Rafi, are you there? Do you have any comments, or otherwise we'll just keep going with Jeremy if you're not in? Okay, so what I was going to say is, Jeremy, in regards to what the current, Israeli governments are saying, and, ultimately, like in this past election, has anything actually been, the recent past elections, has anything actually been done? Do you see any improvements in what's taken place, or do you think that we've only taken steps backwards?
Well, it's very hard to know because we don't have a new government in Jerusalem yet. We're still working off of the previous government that was elected back in 2009, and 14 of the current ministers and deputy ministers were not re-elected to the next parliament, which they took those seats in January. So we're still in the process of government building. It is probably going to take another week, maybe 2 weeks, perhaps as long as 2.5 weeks till we have a new government. And until we know which parties are in the coalition that will be governing Israel, we're not going to be able to have answers.
Right. So, ultimately, I kind of get caught in here in Vonvo trying to ask a few different questions, which I think are, a little on the tougher end. And what I was going to say is, you look at the different, parties representing the Palestinians, and then the parties representing Israelis. And ultimately, what I'm trying to figure out is this really just a matter of a divide between, really far right-wingers on the Israeli side who, really don't want anything to do with Palestinians? At least you're kind of painting the picture. The current leadership doesn't seem to be, providing real new solutions. And then you look at the leadership on the Palestinian front, and they don't really seem to be interested at all in any new real solutions, and the Palestinian people seem to be fed up with them as well. So ultimately, are we talking about a conflict that is trying to be resolved by people who really, are misrepresentative of their people? Can you go into that?
Yeah, that's definitely something that I feel a lot of people feel. The parliament that the Palestinians elected, that was at this point, I think, close to 7 years ago. It's time the Palestinians have a chance to have a democratically elected group of people that they can say represents them now, and not a group of people that represented them a little while ago. So I think that's very important. And I think on the Israeli side, it really depends who's going to be in the positions of influence and power. Tzipi Livni is a person who wants to put up walls. She talks of the danger of demographics. She's the person that's going to be leading the peace negotiations on the Israeli side, which is one of the things that we've been led to believe based on her agreement with Prime Minister Netanyahu, is that we can expect more of the same on the Israeli side if that's going to be our face. And if the Palestinians are going to have the same government that has talked to a number of prime ministers, a number of governments, this is what we're looking at our fourth parliament since the Palestinians have last had theirs, I believe. So it's time the Palestinians put together some new leaders. I'm very hopeful that there'll be a lot of new leaders that are chosen for the government in Israel. But right now we have to see and wait. But if it's going to be more of the same, then I agree with you. We're going to continuously stay in this cycle of violence, and nothing is going to change.
Right. And who was that woman that you just brought up before, who was all about building walls? Would you mind referencing her name again? Because I feel like someone brought her up a few weeks ago and said that
CP. Yeah.
So
CP.
And you're saying that she's coming in with a lot of older ideas that have not worked in the past, in your opinion?
Yeah.
Really? Because I feel like, because for some reason, something tells me... Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Sure. Yeah, Tzipi Livni was the leader of the Kadima party in the last elections. She was formerly one of the right-hand people behind Ariel Sharon she has always said that she wants to have a diplomatic solution, that she wants to have a two-state solution. But she's talking about the same sort of business that we saw with Yehudi when she was the foreign minister in Annapolis, the same business that we've seen with Ehud Barak in Tava and Camp David. And these are the same people that ran out talking against Abu Mazen, Abu Ara, back in the day Arafat. And we see that they were not the people who've been able to bring us the recipe of any sort of settlement. And they're just continuously recycling the same things.
Right. So I mean, do you get the sense that, I mean, the fact that these people are getting reelected, kind of, at least on my end, would make me feel a little scared that then that doesn't really bode well for anything going forward. What is ultimately the reason why these people are getting continuously elected? Is it have to do with, like here in America they talk about, tons of, political spending from, different, different special interest groups, they provide a ton of funding. What's the reasoning for them continuously getting elected?
I think the reason that people keep getting elected is because, for the most part, you're looking at the same viewpoint. There are very few parties that are looking to try to do something new. Like I said, when my party leader said, I do not want to throw one Jew out of this house, and I do not want to throw one Arab out of this house, he's the only party that is saying that. All of the other parties in Parliament are talking about a solution where we're going to throw people out of their homes. I mean, even Meretz, and Meretz is the most peace-loving, far-left party, is the party that calls for the Geneva Initiative, which calls for uprooting Arabs from their homes and places in Jerusalem and having population transfers, and again, building walls and not having a solution where people are able to really move from one side to the other. So it's very hard when you go into a supermarket that's really offering you the same thing over and over again, just each time with a different face.
Right. Now I'm just looking through, and I'm wondering, ultimately, could a reason? Do you think? I mean, Jeremy, give me your honest opinion here. Do you think a reason why they may not be getting reelected, or the reason why they are getting reelected, is because the majority of Israelis are just not really that in favor of coming up with a real peace solution for Palestinians? What's your honest opinion on that?
No, I believe that they think that is what they think is the best solution. I think they've been led to believe that the Palestinians hate them and they have no chance of visiting any religious site. They don't have any real chance of being able to visit a Palestinian state. And that the best they can hope for is a wall that separates the two countries, and that's their idea of peace, to completely separate. I think that's what Israelis believe, and they just think that is what peace is. I disagree. I don't think that peace means that you come to a solution where you stop shooting each other. You have to be able to come to a solution where you recognize what's happening with the countries around you, and that you're able to have economic development. Like I said, we support the employment of Palestinians, whether it's in Israeli companies or it's in companies in the settlements. The settlements employ in certain areas more Palestinians than the Palestinian cities themselves. So again, we're looking to be able to help people on an economic level, to be able to spread religious freedom, and to also say that we don't need to go ahead and oppress anybody or force anything on anybody by saying there's a majority that wants to do this compared to a minority that is going to get screwed more so that we should be looking for something that works better for everybody.
Right. No, and it's quite interesting to hear your take on this, because it's definitely interesting to hear. For some of the people inside the text chat are bringing up that they don't think some of the things you're bringing up are realistic. What's your take on why just that? Why there's why there's that consensus behind that? What do you think that's about? I mean, because you seem pretty level-headed.
The reason they don't.
Go ahead.
Yeah, listen. The reason they feel that is because they haven't heard this before. They've been trained to think the way the political leadership has been talking since 1992. But I'm saying, listen, we've been trying the same thing since '92, and it hasn't worked. I think the level-headed approach is to think outside of the box and to try to go for something else. And if you want to continuously go for the same thing that is not working, that's your prerogative. I'm not going to go ahead and try to force people to have my opinion. And I am going to be very happy to share my opinion with anyone that I speak with. And I think that over time, more and more people will agree with opinions such as myself and my party and my leader. And we'll see in subsequent elections that perhaps that's the type of thinking that will one day see the majority on the Israeli side. However, if on the Palestinian side we do not see similar thinking, then we'll encounter the same cycle of conflict. Whatever happens needs to happen on both sides. But again, we went ahead and we tried a lot of these recipes, and it hasn't worked very well for us. We removed close to 10,000 people from their homes, Jewish Israelis, in Gaza and in the northern West Bank. We returned them to the parts that were living in the area, and what we got was terrorism. It's very clear that Gaza is sitting on the 1967 border. There's not one IDF army base there. There's not one Jewish settler in there. And yet what we saw was just a flood of rockets that hit our towns, that went as far as hitting areas around Jerusalem. And this is just very clear. If we're going to continuously go in this idea that we're going to separate completely, we're going to throw people out of their homes, unfortunately we see that it does not give us the desired result that we're looking for. That's just, to me, a reality based on the facts that I see.
Right. No, I hear exactly what you're saying, and it's just interesting to try and analyze what can really be done. And let me see here in the text chat if anyone's brought up some other questions. We were talking about. Okay. So what I would bring up next is what is your take on the settlers who are inside of the West Bank? What do you think should take place with those people over there? And the one thing that I was just going to mention, Jeremy, I know we had some technical difficulties before, but in about 10-15 minutes, we're having another discussion on Israel-Palestine with 3 other individuals. So you're welcome to obviously sit in and listen on that discussion, but I'll have to be running to create that room for that one. But would you mind giving us your take on settlers inside the West Bank? Because you mentioned that you guys cleared out everyone inside of Gaza, and it resulted in rockets and a ton of rockets. So do you ultimately fear that by doing something along those lines inside the West Bank, if you clear out everyone, it will just result in the same thing?
Yeah, I do believe that that's what we would see. But we really don't need to get to that. Like I said, if I don't want to throw an Arab out of his home and I don't want to throw a Jew out of his home, I think it's very clear that we're looking towards trying to figure out something that we can do at a different level. Look, there are over 700, close to 750,000 Jews that are living over the 1967 line. I don't know of any time post-World War II where there's been a successful relocation of a group that is that large. Definitely, that would be a very, very, very difficult thing to do. On a security standpoint, I don't see that would be helpful. I gave you guys as a good response why. But I also don't see the reasoning behind it. I mean, we're not talking about such a very big place when we're talking about the area that is to the west of the Jordan River. I'm going to go ahead and grab some people together and move them 10 miles one way or 10 miles another way just because of an arbitrary line that was drawn up based on the different countries back in 1948 decided to draw up where the different armies were going to stop fighting. So I think that it's important to go ahead and look at what we can do, not just on a security standpoint, but also on an economic standpoint, because overall that is a very important thing. You need to be able to look out for the religious sensitivities on the issues there, as I said at the beginning of the talk. And very important.
Jeremy, are you there?
To do, because we've not got a chance to hear that for a very long.
Right. Jeremy, do you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so someone named Ari inside the text chat poses two questions. Basically he says, how will it be possible if Palestinian consensus is to reject Israel altogether? And then he says, and how will that change the Palestinians' rejection of Israel? They don't want to be patronized by Israel. What's your take on that?
Listen, for Palestinians that don't want to see Israel, there's not much dialogue I can have with them. And when I was talking about the Molotov cocktails that were being thrown to people that were visiting the tomb of Rachel, it's those type of people. It's very difficult to talk to them. I'd like to believe that a majority of Palestinians are willing to listen to something new, that they realize that the stuff that they've been trying to do has not worked yet. And I think that's why new elections in the Palestinian territories can bring forth new parties, new leaders, new ideas, and then we can start being able to talk about this with somebody on the other side, because right now there really isn't many options of who we can talk to if we're trying to think out of the box. People who want to continue with the same solution, like I said, it's their right to go ahead and do that. And, I'm not trying to patronize anybody. If they think that's a good solution for them, I would have thought that they would have accepted a lot of the deals that were on the table back in the day. And they chose not to, and that's just, to me, a sign that what it is that they think they're going to be able to get out, a little bit here, a little bit there within that same mold, is most likely not going to be very different than what they've already been offered.
Right. All right. Jeremy, not a problem. I'm sorry we had the few technical difficulties with Rafi. But, I wanted to just thank you for, taking some time to come on Vonvo, answer some, participants' questions, and, share your opinion and clear up, ultimately the message that you believe your party is trying to send, so that people really know what you guys actually stand for and, can actually hear it for themselves, right?
Yeah, I'm very happy to be able to have a platform and be able to do that. I'm sorry that Rafi wasn't able to be here for the entire conversation, but I think we were able to go ahead and start something, and I look forward to being able to do it sometime soon.
All right.
Thank you so much, Max.
Yeah, you got it, Jeremy. Thank you so much for coming on again. Speak to you soon, okay?
Okay.
All right, bye-bye.